Welcome back to another video. It's finally the season of spookiness and it's one of my favorite times of the year. Pumpkin spice lattes are back on the menu, the weather is lovely, and the coziness levels are off the charts. But above all, I love Halloween. Seeing as this is my first Halloween on this channel, I had to do a Halloween themed episode. So first things first, let's get spookified. There we go, much better. Now, let's get into these Halloween inspired Pow Pow. Starting things off, I knew I wanted to make a Pow Pow inspired by a black cat. Black cats are very Halloween, but they're also normal enough to stand on their own, since I didn't want all of my designs to be so on the nose with their Halloween ties. Black cats leave a lot of room for concepts and ideas. The concept that I went with was it being a sort of manipulator of shadows, since it is all black after all and would explain why it is so. With it being mostly made up of just black mass, I knew I wanted the eyes to be large and round to give a point of focus to the design. I thought a face with just the big round eyes with no visible mouth or nose felt right for a black cat Pow Pow. They're mostly known for their silhouette and it sort of creates an aloofness and mysteriousness associated with black cats. However, this doesn't leave much room for facial expression though, so I decided to add a second head to the tail, which I thought was a fun twist. This head could be much more emotive while keeping the charm of the blank facial expression of the cat head. Eventually, I leaned towards the idea that the tail is actually its real head and that the cat body was actually its form of shadow manipulation. Super simple concept and maybe even a bit on the nose, but I thought it fit my needs perfectly. Plus, I love that it tells a bit of a story even though the design is incredibly simple. Its design is really on the surface and easy to read, but I think it's nice to have designs like that. Kitnight, the Shadow Pow Pow. Kitnight's real head is on the tail end of the body. This tricky Pow Pow has the ability to manipulate its shadow body to appear harmless and approachable, perfectly luring in unsuspecting prey for a surprise attack. As I said before, I really love how simple this design is. The imagery of a black cat kind of lends itself to simplicity, and I wanted to find a way to squeeze in a concept while not breaking the appeal and charm of the black cat. I think this design does that for me and even has a trick element to it, which is very fitting for Halloween. Next, we'll be going into Flitterby. Bats are another animal that are associated with Halloween, but could very well just be seen as another Pow Pow without any particular ties to the holiday. With the bat design, I was kind of shooting for a filler type Pow Pow design. This may be an unpopular opinion, but I think filler designs are kind of important. It helps build out the world a bit and kind of allows for other Pow Pow to shine. And I wanted my bat to do that, kind of be the Pow Pow you encounter everywhere that is a bit spooky in nature. I did try to squeeze a bit of a ghostly shape to its body just to give it a little something and to inject a little more spookiness into its design. I went back and forth between the closed and glowing eyes, but eventually landed on the glowing yellow eyes for a pop of color and it felt more ghostly and nightly. Flitterby, the Flitter Pow Pow. These Pow Pow are most active at night. Their feet are actually used more like hands that carry things such as fruits and sticks back to their nests. Because of this, they are often used as messengers, delivering and retrieving letters for their scouts. While it was intended to be a filler Pow Pow, the more I sit with it, the more bored I get with it. I might have to give this Pow Pow a second pass down the line, but considering how fast the design came together and how low effort it was, I'm pretty happy with it for now. Now, the reason I was avoiding going too Halloween with either design was because this next Pow Pow line is going to lean very heavily into the Halloween theming. So starting off this line is a pretty straightforward design, but I'm honestly really happy with it. It's just a little jack-o'-lantern with little vine tentacles, but it all kind of works. Kind of reminds me of an alien or an octopus, but as a jack-o'-lantern. Kinpy, the Pumpkin Pow Pow. Kinpy lie dormant in the ground for most of the year. During the autumn season, they come out of the ground to feed on various crops that will allow them to grow stronger. Because they resemble gourds, they can easily blend into pumpkin patches without being caught. I think Kinpy is a fun design, kind of what I'm looking for when making a Halloween Pow Pow. In hindsight, it does kind of remind me of Pachamaris from Overwatch, if anyone remembers those. But anyway, let's get into its evo. The name for the evolution actually came before the design this time, which is the first time ever I think. The name Gourdian was just too good to not use, so I went ahead and drafted up some Protector Guardian pumpkin designs. I settled on this jack-o'-lantern golem / knight design. My biggest worry with this concept is having it come across looking more like a set of Halloween armor rather than a sort of creature. Working through this design, I realized most of my designs thus far have been very animal based, so this design was obviously going to stand out. Not only for being a Halloween themed design, but also for being a non-animalistic design as well. So there is concern about how it will fit in. But I do want the definition of what can be a Pow Pow to be quite wide. I hope as I continue to add more Pow Pow to the Pow Pow roster, it will become more clear to me what is it that makes a Pow Pow a Pow Pow. But for right now, I think this design definitely stands on the outskirts of what people may consider a Pow Pow to be. I did struggle a bit with this design. It was starting to look quite cheesy and corny, and not in the way I like either. The colors it had in its prevo were not working here, and something was wrong with the overall shape and look of the jack-o'-lantern. I quickly explored an alternate direction, but I still leaned towards the bulky, stumpy nature of the design I started with. So I decided I would go back and try to address some of those things piece by piece. Resizing the ovalish head to be stumpier was already a great start. I decided the face was also going to need to change so that it wouldn't feel too corny. I had these horns in its initial sketch and omitted them earlier because I thought they may be too much. But bringing them back, I think they really strengthened its silhouette and brought the design around. I gave it these slits in its mouth to resemble that of a knight's helmet, which kind of also fit with its new horns. Overall, the design was already looking much more balanced and better pushed that Halloween night theme better. I replaced the greens with more of a brown root color, which made the design more cohesive and less of an eyesore. And I brought back the flame, which adds a bit of magic and color pop to the design. Gourdian, the pumpkin knight Pow Pow. While their bodies are mostly hollow inside, their outer armor is incredibly formidable. It is even resistant to fire. Gourdian live to serve. They will wander about until they find a master to pledge their allegiance to. A Gourdian with a lit flame signifies that it has been knighted by a Majacko, and has been blessed with a pumpkin power. My favorite Halloween imagery are definitely jack-o'-lanterns, so I couldn't resist leaning so heavily into it for this line. It's so festive and appealing, especially during this time of year. Now, Gourdian is actually not the only thing that Kinpy can evolve into. On rare occasions, a Kinpy can evolve into Majacko. This is actually the first design I came up with when I was trying to make Halloween themed Pow Pow. Like I said, jack-o'-lanterns are my favorite Halloween imagery, and I knew I had to have a jack-o'-lantern headed Pow Pow. I usually see pumpkin creatures depicted more like goblins, where their root bits become more like arms and legs, and I definitely want to stray away from there. Initially, the design was set to be some kind of ghost Pow Pow that inhabits this pumpkin-headed form, but without the jack-o'-lantern fully lit, it just didn't have the same charm to me. While it did have that cool edge to it, I really wanted to go more festive, so I decided the jack-o'-lantern itself was the creature so that the face could be lit up. Overall, the design is really simple, but I like where it ended up. Majacko, the pumpkin prince/princess Pow Pow. Majacko are almost always hidden behind their troop of Gourdian. Majacko are quite fragile, but have an incredible talent for magic. Their magical abilities are increased when used at night. They can use this magic to bless their knights, strengthening their force. When I first finished Majacko's design, which came before Kinpy and Gourdian, I really loved it. Just as a character, I really enjoyed it, but as a Pow Pow, it really didn't fit in. I worried it wasn't very creature-like, and the design didn't really seem to fit into Pow Pow world as it stood. So as much as I liked the design, I considered scrapping it. I left the design and came back to it again and again. I considered changing aspects about it to fit into Pow Pow world, but I loved the design so much as it was and was too stubborn to change it. So to make it fit in as a Pow Pow without changing its design, I thought let's give it some context with the pre-evolution. I figured if the pre-evolution was much more creature-like, this could help bridge the gap that the design had and tie it into Pow Pow world better. So that's why its pre-evolution, Kinpy, is much more creature-like. Along the way I came up with Gourdian as a split evolution for the line, and I think it only better helped tie the designs together, and it had a little knight and prince dynamic that I very much liked. Overall, I am pleased with the line and how they ended up, but I totally understand if people still feel like they don't belong. So these are all my spooky Pow Pow for this Halloween special. I'm really happy with Kinpy line as a whole, and Kitnight is incredibly simple but effective. However, I am still on the fence for Flitterby. It definitely can use a bit of something, but for now I am happy enough with it. And I can always give it an evolution or redesign it down the line. But let me know how you feel about any of the designs presented today. I await you in the comment sections below. But bye for now, and thanks so much for watching. Happy Halloween, everybody!